Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the today's webinar. I am Rituraj, founder of Burmese Law Journal, and today we have Miss Ashima Mandla, ma'am. She is the talented advocate of Supreme Court of India. Before starting our interview, first I would like to ask, ma'am, tell us something about your early childhood and schooling, and about your background.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. It's my honor to be here to speak to all of you. And I'll find myself at the risk of repeating myself for the fact that I've spoken about this topic in numerous webinars now. So if you find some similarity in what you've said, what I've said before, please excuse that because I'm actually finding myself uh,
That's
repeating
fine. That's fine.
these stories. So yes, back to how it started. I had actually done my bachelor's in psychology honors, and at that time when I was doing my bachelor's from Lady Sri Ram, I had not actually given a thought to joining the legal profession that seriously. Um, but towards the second year of my course, this was something that was quite evident that I didn't want to continue with psychology. So when I completed the course, my family suggested that I take a year's sabbatical to first decide that whether it is something I really want to do. Um but the law is something I really want to do because I cannot have possibly, you know, take another degree and not even practice that. So for that matter, my family arranged a pre-law internship with Trilegal Delhi for me, and I worked under them for 2 months. And even though, of course, when you started an internship without having any credible knowledge of the subject, there are a few glitches along the way. There are a few bumps along the way, which I, of course, faced my own set of hurdles at that time. But there was one thing that was absolutely clear, and that was that I was so enchanted by the entire setup of how the corporate culture works and the perks and privileges and this entire excitement that you have, that you've been going to school, you've been going to college all your life, and now it's the time to sit at the desk and do some work, and that sense of enthusiasm that there was, that I was certain that I wanted to do, make a career in corporate litigation, and I wanted to come back after. I dreamt of coming back to Trilegal after having completed my bachelor's in law. So, with that aim in mind, I appeared for the entrance for Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, uh, and I got my admission there. So the first entire year when I was introduced to this subject, so there is of course this difference for those of you who enrolled in a 5 year law course. Of course, the first 1 year, as I've been told, is very few. The emphasis that on legal subjects is rather less as compared to what we see in a concentrated 3 year LLB. So in the first year of my LLB, of course, I was exposed to corporate, constitutional law, criminal law, family law, and it was very interesting and very enticing at once. But I was very, very eagerly waiting for corporate law because that's where I thought I'd make my career in. But it was suggested by a few of my seniors, and very rightfully so, that before you make any decision in the field, it's very important that you get a taste of both corporate and litigation, because based on one internship or one good experience, you cannot base your entire career um, on such a decision. So for that matter, I was very lucky enough. I was lucky enough to get an internship under Mr. KT Tulsi, and that was my effectively my first internship when I started law. In my first year, I joined him in the vacation bench in June back in 2015, and that, in fact, for the second time now, completely changed my trajectory, my perception towards law. And once again, I found myself being enticed. But this time it was litigation, and criminal litigation to be more precise. And I thought that this is absolutely the thing that I want to do apart from litigation, the combination of politics and parliamentary affairs, because he is a member parliament of Rajya Sabha. Uh, but one thing which was very positive that happened on that internship is that I found some very encouraging people, um, who led me to this path that you can actually make your own career. So I found a mentor in that internship, apart from, of course, KTS sir, who instilled that confidence in me that you can actually go out and you know establish a career for yourself, despite what a lot of first generation lawyers think, that you only need pull and you need connections, and it's very difficult if you're a first generation lawyer to secure internships, a job, start your own practice. But as throughout this webinar will go, I will explain it to you what I mean by having the right kind of mentors. So after that internship, of course, I decided in the next 2 years that I'm going to have a mix of both corporate and litigation, and I did just that. Over a span of the remaining 2 years, I took up about 9 more internships. So at the end of my 3 year course, I'd done 10 internships, along with moot court competitions and just everything that the college could offer in terms of co-curricular activities, to actually get a feel of what practice feels like and what it is to be outside law school. Um, and that really helped. So eventually, of course, after I graduated, actually after I gave my finished with my exams, I joined Mr. KTS Tulsi as an associate, and I worked under him for a period of a year before I went independent, and that sums up the story so far. But the remaining parts of it, of course, I'll answer as we go through the remaining questions.
Hello. The second question is, ma'am, when did you decided to pursue law as a profession, and are you a first generation lawyer?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am. Here, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted in between. So yes, I
Yeah.
am a first generation lawyer. Um, and can you please repeat the second part of the question?
Yeah. For when did you decided to pursue law as a profession?
Yeah, I answered that in the
And
story.
second part
So
is, are you uh, okay? And a second question, are you a first generation lawyer?
yes, I'm a first generation lawyer, and all those things I've already mentioned in the story I just narrated.
How was your experience in law school, along with your internship and all your extracurriculum activities? How you manage
This
everything?
part,
Like
this
10.
part is of course relevant to a lot of the students who are attending the session today. Is that please do intern as much as possible, and I cannot emphasize this enough, because a lot of the interns who come in, they it's very evident when you will also start your practice, you'll get a job or you go for an internship, and then you realize the um, lag that you have in terms of your knowledge, because what is taught to you in law school is a lot different than what is required of you in practice, especially because when we are studying for our examinations, we have to pass our course in this profession. We read a subject, we read a subtopic, a subsection, and then we feel that we have to know the landmark in this, the citation, the provisions, definition as it states in the Bare Act, and enough material to be able to answer a question that comes on this situation. But it's in fact, when you come to practice, you realize that there are 100 other things that you need to know, and especially the way you have to in a way mold the theoretical knowledge that you have and convert it into that sense of practical knowledge that is required in order to deal with the cases at hand. Because it's not about looking at one subject or one bare act or one section at once. You have to have the ability to think in different tangents. Your mind should be able to go in different tangents and, in a way, harmoniously get everything together. So that is a skill that your internships will teach you. Of course, your college does equip you with theoretical knowledge, but those are the only basics that there are, because law is such a vast subject, and that's exactly why it's called reading law, because you're never done with it. So, the my law school experience, of course, what I learned for my papers and the way uh, the curriculum unfolds, it of course gives you a lot of perspective in terms of what the laws are, the basics, and everything. But the real world practice and implementation, and you can actually see it only when you go and intern. So I'll also answer something here, which is very relevant for people who are going to be seeking jobs as freshers. Uh, there is this age old vice that the interns have, that why are they underpaid, or the freshers, that what are why the industry standards in litigation so low as compared to corporate, is for the fact that you have to be an asset to the person that you're joining, whether it is as an intern or as an associate. And because when you're coming out of law school, or while in law school you're an intern, the knowledge base that you have in terms of how things are done in courts, or how to deal with clients, or how the drafts are made, there are so many aspects of it, which of course our law school does not, those skills are not honed, and those skills are not even taught to us in law school. And that's exactly why, you in order to for you to be an asset to somebody, there is a considerable amount of experience, and proactiveness on your part to get that experience is also required. And that's something that I learned being in, while I was doing my LLB, is that if you are to secure a good job, a good placement for yourself, whether it is in a firm or in a chamber, be it anywhere. You have to project yourself as an asset to the other person's practice. Otherwise, what is the considerable reason for them to hire you, to pay you and teach you, when you are not going to be proving yourself as an asset to them? So, this is the most important learning that I took away from my 3 years in law school, is that, of course, you get your basics here. You need to have your degree in order to practice. But it is entirely upon you how you shape your career by the way you conduct yourself, about the amount of hard work you put in order for you to actually be projected as a valuable asset for another person, and they'd be willing to pay you and keep you on their payroll.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, would you like to share any experience of your first day or case in a court? Your experience in a court, first day experience in a court.
So, of course, the first day I was in, I attended court as an intern is very different. And the day you attend court as an associate, as a lawyer, that sense of pride and happiness everybody has, that you've made it this far. But then the sheer amount of knowledge that other people have, and especially the seniors and super seniors who you see argue in court, and then it also hits you that there is a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance, and every day the kind of hard work that you have to put in every day is enormous for the fact to sustain yourself in the profession. And I experienced all those mixed emotions myself, and I stepped foot inside the courtroom the first time as an advocate. Uh, and the first time I appeared and argued a matter in person is a story, and I'll share it with that perspective of how you need to yourself overcome that fear to be appearing and arguing for yourself in person in the courts. And I have to, of course, in my journey, thank the people who've helped me get here and who pushed me at the right time. So you need people to push you and motivate you. Otherwise, the amount of complacency that will come in before you actually join litigation in the truest sense, and that means not just drafting and briefing, but also being able to stand there in front of a judge and argue a matter. And you always need motivation from others. You need encouragement and mentoring and that constant feedback in order to grow. So for me, it was in the first couple of months when I joined practice, and then it was a PIL. Um, and of course, I was hoping that my senior would be arguing this matter, but uh, she encouraged me, and she said that you've drafted it, and I think that you'll be able to manage it. And I was absolutely petrified. There is I still remember going up there, and I prepared this entire, list of arguments to be made, and detailed arguments that I'll make. And I thought I'll, just read them out for the judge, just in case I forget something or I get very nervous. Uh, and while I started doing that, because I saw all the other advocates before me, those matters which were listed before me, people were prepared. And some of them were just, instantaneously speaking and without any assistance of any note or any reading material in front of them. But at that time, I was not confident enough. I thought I'll completely mess it up. So I had, of course, kept the safety note with me. So as I stood up there and I was able to, with all the shivering and the palpitation, I said the first sentence. The judge looked at me and she said that, I don't get nervous. Just say what you have to say, but don't read. Because if you read, it projects the image that you don't know what you're talking about. And that was Justice Geeta Mittal. And that was my first interaction in court, and a very, very helpful piece of advice which she gave, which I would like to pass on to everybody. That's absolutely true. If you stand over there, and even though you're visibly nervous, and especially if you're a young lawyer, the judges are very encouraging. And in so many cases, it happens that instead of, when you as a junior counsel go to get an adjournment or a passover for your senior, so instead of giving you the passover, so many judges in fact encourage you to come and argue, and they say that we're only passing it over with the with the condition that you are going to be coming back preparing and arguing this matter, and not your senior. And that is their form of pushing you and motivating and encouraging you to get out of your shelf and get over that apprehension of speaking inside the courtroom. So that, I think, is the first and the most important lesson that I took away. And of course, there are times where you absolutely feel at a loss of words as the situation unfolds in court. And sometimes you will see that happening to you, you see that happening to your seniors. Uh, but with learning and the amount of court hearings that you go and attend for yourself, you see the judges, how they interact with the lawyers arguing matters, especially the notable senior lawyers. You learn so much from them. You learn the tricks of the trade, and you have to be inculcating that in your own skill set, which develops over time. So you can't think that I'm going to sit, I'm going to read 10 articles and see 10 videos, and tomorrow when I go to court, I'll be perfect. That's not going to happen. There is no shortcut to this. Watching this webinar also may not help you at all. And I'm being very honest about it. It may or may not help you, but it can at least give you that sense of direction, which my seniors were very kind enough to give me. Is that it's not one day's process, it's going to take time, and you should be able to, first of all, admit it to yourself that, listen, there is something in me which needs that kind of, you know, refining. Till the time you are not able to deal with this on a personal level, that either I am lacking in terms of my drafting skills, my speaking skills, the way I'm able to communicate or express, and in your head you think you're perfect, then there will be no upward growth in your graph, because you're going to be stagnating yourself by thinking that I don't need to learn anything from anyone else and I know everything myself. Don't admit it to the world if you don't want to, but at least admit it to yourself. And the moment you're able to break that barrier, and I'm telling you from my personal experience, the moment you're able to break that mental barrier, that look, I understand that this is this problem I have, and I should be able to work on it, and work on it with dedication, and it's a long process, and there will be no shortcuts to that. It can't be that you Google everything and things will fall into place. It won't be like that.
Thanks, ma'am. So, what are area of practice interests? Area of practice.
For me, it's mostly I have the most amount of interest in either the Constitution or criminal law. But I can also tell you this, that while over time you can develop your practice in a certain area, especially where you're an independent first generation lawyer, you do not have the ability to really choose the kind of work that comes your way, because that's the misconception I had when I went independent, and I thought that I'm only going to be taking up criminal matters. But just so it have, life has it, it's not always what you expect that you'll get, and I ended up getting a lot of other kind of matters, writ petitions, service matters, and you realize that unless and until you don't go out and explore all the possibilities that are out there, you wouldn't know for yourself what you like. So, with the limited kind of work that I've done so far in these almost 3 years, is that I know that criminal and constitution is something that really, really interests me, and I'd hope that one day I am able to specialize in them. But till then, whatever kind of work that comes your way and comes my way, that's the work I engage in.
Thank you, ma'am. So, the next question I want to ask is what are the biggest problem in lawyers' life? What kind of problems they faced in their life, like in career litigation, in litigation career?
See, especially if you're a first generation lawyer, I can tell you for a fact that it's a lot of competition out there, and that's there in any field for that matter. Um, but apart from having to deal with your financial issues, which you have to be very mindful of, and I think that is the single most important factor determining when you should in your life start being independent in terms of your cases, is first of all is the ability to build your clientele, how to network effectively, and how to get more work. So it's a different thing for the established lawyers, because people know them, they are known for their work, and people actually reach out to them. So it's, and be also mindful of the fact that they also started from somewhere in order to get there. So it's not impossible, but there is, in order to get that combination right, from how to pick up work, whether it would be through networking online, as we are doing at the moment. We're using LinkedIn a lot these days, a lot of us. Um, for personally me, I haven't really seen work coming through LinkedIn. Um, I think the biggest challenge is that how effectively by word of mouth are you able to break through, and with lakhs of lawyers in the city, uh, get clients to come to you. Once they've come to you, how to make sure that you maintain those clients, because that is the most difficult aspect. And I'm not even talking about the negotiations in terms of the finances, that what to quote, because if you overreach and overplay that hand and you quote too much money, then of course they are going to run away. But it is also by your sense of dedication, performance, in giving them time and time to their matter, and to retain them. That is one of the biggest problems, because these days the clients are also very smart, in the sense they do their background research. They also know for a fact that no longer require like an NOC from your lawyer in order to change them. And it's against the professional ethics to withhold their files also. So you cannot even do those tactics. And purely on the basis of the amount of work you're doing for them and the results that you get them, which of course is a very, very long and tedious process, because you have to be on your toes. You need to not only know the law, but you also need to know the developments that are happening in it. and how to effectively not only mold your side of the argument, but also to possibly come up with whatever the arguments the opposite side would have, or the questions, contentions that the judge may raise to you, to be prepared. So, on an everyday basis, lawyers do feel face those challenges, and uh, to establish yourself would take nearly a decade to be on the reasonable side. So it is work, hard work every day with discipline, because if you can't think that, I read this in my college days and the law right now would still subsist, because overnight things here change drastically. So you really have to be on your toes at all times, whether it is with your knowledge base or it is with the clients. And only when you're able to give time to both can you actually see your career graph also growing in its trajectory.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question I want to ask is, what do you say on the nepotism in the legal field?
Without having taken any names, of course, nepotism exists in this field, and it does just so as it does in any other aspect of life. Uh, and I can, rather than going on the downside of nepotism, only give you one advice, that the sooner you're able to come to this understanding and make peace with this, that look, some people are well connected, they will have more in terms of connections, contacts, and in a power position financially or authority wise over you. But that does not mean that if you do not put your mind, if you put your mind to it, you can't achieve that. So while nepotism is there, but that is no replacement for the hard work that you can put in. And if you have that conviction in yourself that you can set yourself apart and make your own journey and career graph for yourself, then the nepotism would not hurt you as much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your answer. What are the qualities required to become a top lawyer? Like you are growing in this field, so you know very well. What are the qualities?
I did this one. I was just like I just in the previous question, I was explaining about what are the challenges. That also I explained with the amount of hard work that is required, and I find myself repeating this word too much, but that truly encaptures everything, because right from how to read what a client wants in order to decode uh, with logical reasoning whatever their case is, then in a dedicated manner, get the research right, make a draft, which of course is should be so simplistic and so holistic and comprehensive that a person who's not read it, which is going to be the judge and the opposite counsel, should be able to understand that draft in its entirety. That is a skill which you have to develop, and it is an absolute must in at least my personal understanding of the profession. And then comes your speaking, your oratory skills, and how to speak in public. But the most important skill which I feel, these are the aspects of litigation which you must work on over time and develop. But I think there is no replacement to the confidence that you need to have in yourself, and the ability to put in long tedious hours and critically analyze things, because advocacy is just not about reading the law and going out there and reiterating the law because the judges know it. But in order to win your case, advocacy is how to use that law, make an argument in a logical way, and in a way that becomes a relief driven argument, and it helps you win your case and get relief for your client. So that is the true form of advocacy, and the the true spirit of advocacy, which is the most absolutely essential skill that you need to develop, is to, like I just said, understand all the aspects of the law that are in play and mold your arguments in such a way, whether it's your written pleadings or what you say in court in front of a judge, in order to get relief, because that's our ultimate goal.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your words. Uh, how to prepare? Our next question. My next question is how to prepare for litigation career in college. I mean, from how a student can start his career while studying in college in the field of
So there are a lot of
litigation.
small things that you can do. See, take your internships very seriously, because they really are a window into the practical world. And I'll give you an example how. So, for example, we have moot courts in colleges, and a lot of us participate in it. Um, but what you have to understand is that while moot courts are a very good way of getting uh, a good grasp on how to research, how to draft, and how to speak in front of a judge and hold your argument when you're being cross questioned. But you also have to understand that the drawbacks of this situation are that you are allowed to read from the memorial that you make. And half the time, the judges who come to judge you have not read your memorial, and they are also just shooting arrows in the air. And I can say that for a fact, because I've seen that happen, and I've judged moot court competitions myself, and I know that we don't get to read the memorials in advance. So, but such is not the case in courtrooms, because the judges know the law, they've read your file and come, and you cannot just confine yourself to thinking that, I prepared for my case and I'm going to go with these blinkers on the sides of my eyes, that this is the only argument, only possible way to look at it. So the thing that you need to develop while you're in law school is to have that logical way of thinking, and to also simultaneously develop this love for not only questioning everything. Reasoning is one thing, that you reason, that you have a logical and reasonable outlook towards everything, but you should also have this knack and curiosity to question things, because law is also not very perfect. And that's exactly why there are challenges to it. It grows and it changes over time. So that's sense of, if you read a judgment, not only should you be able to read it very effectively to understand what the true essence of this judgment is, also understand how the application should be in different terms, how this one judgment across the various spectrums of different laws this judgment would affect, like how anything in constitutional law, it actually applies to every law in the country, and it all stems from the constitution, right? So that kind of reasoning, that kind of outlook you need to develop, and it's better that you start now while you're reading law, and you're dedicating your entire time to this before you get into the profession. Because once you get into the profession, the amount of time that you get in order to read for your own personal knowledge base is fairly limited, because you're going to be stuck up in the chores of everyday career that you have, and some of them would just require you to sit in courtrooms, you know throughout the day, without having access to reading material or just waiting for a matter. So that sense of time which you have at the moment, you may not have later, and it's better that you develop that habit right now. And also to understand that it is one thing which a lot of interns who I've personally interacted with seem to have difficulty, is that they think that just because they're not very confident in speaking in the public, they feel that litigation is not their should not be their first choice, or they feel that they should choose being in the firm culture over being in litigation for the monetary aspects of it. And these two things also I would like to address now before I forget them. To the first point of oratory skills, my advice to you would be that don't please choose whether to work in a firm or make a career in litigation purely because of the lack of very perfect smoother oratory skills, for the fact that these skills are required even when you're working in a firm, interacting with the client, or briefing your boss, or going to brief a senior who's going to be appearing in that matter. So, or even to, of course, crack a job interview. So instead of running away from the situation and feeling that, I'm going to choose what in your head is going to be the lesser tedious alternative or the safer option for you, you could use this time while you're in law school to really hone that skill, public speaking skill, and start small by, and I've given this advice before in another webinar, so I find myself repeating it right now because I've personally followed it. That's exactly why I'm recommending it. It might help you. Um, just like right now, you're attending this webinar. While you can see me, I can see myself while talking to you. So if I forget the fact that or the top right corner says that I'm live on YouTube and I can see people joining and leaving as I speak, to me it appears I'm speaking to myself if I ignore all of this. So you can also do that. Switch on your camera, put it on selfie mode, and just start speaking as if you're going to be making an argument or read something out loud. As you do that, you can also really, practice, smoothen out, and make your speaking skills a little more articulate, and learn how to speak in a clear, precise, in an unmistakable and certain tone. Uh, for the fact that anything that you say with conviction, and you develop this habit now, so that once you join the profession, or already if you're professionals, so that over time, you're able to grasp the attention of the judge better, and also speak with conviction with your clients, is because when somebody appears to be confident and speaks something in a confident manner, what we judge, being a third party, is that they are very well aware of what they're speaking about, and you give them that they must be coming from a place where they're very aware of the facts of the case, or the argument that they are making. So when you're confident, it shows that you're clear with the facts and so on. However, on the other hand, if the same thing is said with a lot of stuttering, a lot of stammering, and you're pausing too much, and you're going making all those theatrics, it immediately appears that you are uncertain, you're not aware of the facts that are involved or what you're talking about, and slowly the other person loses credibility and faith in what you're saying. So it is also very important not to just say the right thing, but also the way to say it, and this is something that you can practice now while being in school, law school, and kind of practice it when you go out in moot court competitions, or in classroom when in practical papers you're given the opportunity to address an argument. So, and the other aspect what I'm coming to is how to choose a career, whether to go and practice in terms of litigation, to work under a, a lawyer, or to join a firm, and making this decision based on financial repercussions, is that, of course, I personally faced it as well. That, like I told you in the beginning, that I wanted to work in a firm culture, and one of the major reasons for it was the handsome salary that comes in with it. And you feel that you've come out of law school, and if you're going to get an annual package of say 50,000, 1 lakh, or more than that, then of course that's very enticing. And while there's nothing wrong in it, to choose it for the money, and some people just do prefer doing paperwork and due diligence, and they're very good at it, and there is nothing wrong with it. But if you ever imagined yourself going out there and in courtrooms arguing matters for yourself, and making a name in litigation, and to be known for that, and to be designated a senior advocate for starters, then in that case, forget the monetary aspect for now. If your parents and your family can support you for a while, because the amount of money that you can earn in litigation, it's unparalleled as compared to firm culture, because not everybody can make partner, to be very, very honest. And some people think that if you are going to, start off your career in a firm and then make a lateral transfer to litigation, that may work for some, may not, for the fact that you have effectively lost a few years in a setup of a firm culture or litigation, and that switch is never lateral, because every system and every court complex, whether it's lower courts, high courts, or Supreme Court, they are an ecosystem in it on its own. So you can't just think that you're going to enter from another ecosystem and it's going to be a lateral transfer. The same way, a firm culture is an ecosystem which is separate than litigation. So you have to give it time and a few years in order to adjust there and to pick up those skills from there. So while you're in college, you should be able to get an experience of both of this, both of these separate ecosystems that exist. So intern as much as opportunity as you get, whether it's under a firm or under the chambers of any practicing advocates, senior advocates, if you're able to get advocates on record, if you think that you want to, pursue with Supreme Court litigation, because they have a lot of work. So that would be my advice. And I think Ritu can add here on this also, because I was having a discussion with him today on the amount of internships that he's done, and he's in secondary, he's already uh, awaiting his fourth internship, I believe. So I think if you can also, being in this situation, speak about it, that will also be a good message to all the fellow law students out there.
Sure. Uh, Now I am in second year and I have done three internships. One in district court. I was started from district court, where I have learned some drafting skills, how to file case. My lawyer is a criminal lawyer. He appears for criminal cases. Then I saw many kinds of his uh, cases in the courts, and he gave me the his draft to read, find the errors, where grammatical errors or any kind of, these are the works which I got in district court. And second internship I done in PUCL. Wait a minute, I think you are
No,
huh.
it's very
So,
important what you said, and especially you realize that the kind of work, even how to draft something, a petition, or overseeing the filing, the proofreading that is required, or how to attend a client conference. These things you only understand in internships and then when you join
yeah,
practice.
right.
So the more you know it right now in terms of your internships, the more practical things you pick up, and rather than just doing internships to make it look good on your CV, or to just to get the certificate, or to say that it's mandatory in my college, that's why I'm interning. If you do it for the right purpose of learning, then it will really help you get a good job. Because when a prospective employer will see your CV, they will think that this person must be at least knowing something to start with, and the remaining you can learn, and nobody can sit and teach you all these things. There's no handbook on it, or guidelines that you will be given on the first day, that from scratch till arguments, this is the procedure. Because every case is very different, and every kind of jurisdiction has different formalities that you have to see. But if you want to actually look very effective, and this is an advice I'm giving to all of you, and who are seeking jobs, that if the impression that you give out is that you are hardworking and you're an asset to somebody's organization and their practice, then the chances that you will get a placement offer, or be accepted in your job interview, is the chances would exponentially increase in that case. Because while we understand that freshers are not going to be equipped in those with having all this set of skills that are required, but you also want to hire people who at least show that promise, that if they are given direction with time, they will understand. So you yourself have to market your own image, that I can do it and show results. And even if you show it in your internship, the chances are that these associates will refer you ahead for other internships or help you get a job if they themselves can't keep you. And these are things which will really help you, and it's better that you start in your law school days to build that network for yourself, because a lot of students make this mistake that they apply for jobs about, 2 months before their graduation, while all the jobs, the good ones, are gone by then, because people actually start applying for months in advance. So once you have your internship base ready, and then you actively seek uh, a job, and you're able to show some sort of performance, then half the battle is won there. And the remaining is, of course, how you prove your worth once you're out there.
Ma'am, how do you manage like 10 internship with the mood court and other competition while studying in college while giving exams and all in 3 year course only? Like 10 internship is too much in 3 years only. How do you manage that?
I utilized all my vacations. So colleges are effectively, exams take place in April, May, and June is shut. So every June I was interning. In December's I was interning, and wherever in between I could take on internships at the cost. You make that calculation, and every college, you please see this at your own risk on your own college attendance rules, because I calculated for myself that I can afford to miss these many lectures, and so I attended uh, college in cluster, and after that kept a month aside every semester from the working days to in order to go and intern, because I realized that while attending lectures is a good way to learn law, a lot of it you have to do by yourself. So while you some people find it very effective to diligently attend lectures, and I'm not trying to give you the wrong impression here, uh, but you always have to strike a balance. So I knew that I was going to miss few things which my other classmates would be better equipped at the reasoning that is discussed in while these lectures go on. But I knew that this sort of balance is required in order to gain the practical exposure of how things are actually done on the field. So through these internships, I picked up a lot of things which ultimately helped me get that kick start when I started off.
I, Next question is, what is your wisdom and success mantra for young legal professionals? And after that, we will entertain the questions of our
Everybody
viewers.
has their everybody has their own career graph, and there is the success mantra. I think I've reiterated it again and again. Uh, to For starters, I think first you need to uh, be at a place and be surrounded by people who are very encouraging of you, and who are not in this constant battle to pull you down, because it's very rare that you will find those kind of people in the profession, as everybody is competing, and the fact that you are gaining a client means somebody is losing one. So you need to first of all have mentors who will guide you along the way. I was very lucky to have such a start, and I ended up and I'm working with the person who guided me, and she is the Assistant Advocate General for Punjab now, Miss Mandakini Singh, and she's the person who actually truly encouraged me against all odds to just go believe in yourself and go start your own practice, get over that fear, for the fact that a lot of people um, get complacent, and complacency is a killer in this profession. If you feel that your job is only to brief your senior, or do the drafting, or oversee the filing, then over years you're going to get in this sort of complacency, and you feel that once the matter is listed for arguments inside the courtroom, then it is for your senior to come up with those arguments. And if they get stuck and the judge asks any questions, it's for them to answer. But unless and until you don't exercise this on your own and constantly learn by observing other people, reading more, and critically analyzing things with, amongst your peers and by yourself, you will not develop that worldview that is required in litigation. And it's not as simple as somebody telling you that you have to just stand there and ye bol dena hai. It won't help, because you never know what the judge may throw at you. So success mantra, as such, I'm nobody to give you one, because I've also just started in my career. uh, but I can just tell you what's worked for me, which I've already uh, tried to share as much as possible uh, through the last 50 minutes that I've spoken. But apart from that, the only thing to remember is that there is. Yeah, sorry, I think I got muted there. So,
Due to network.
I think you have to just, at the end of the day, focus on your own journey, your own personal growth, and you'll have to do it at every step of the way. And I mean, don't let anybody else come and give you that sort of, you know, uh, don't go out there and seek validation from other people, and just try and stay on track on your own journey, is all I can tell you.
So those who have a questions, please raise their hand. I will unmute them. Ma'am will answer. So wait, let me unmute. Balaji. Uh, Balaji,
Uh, yeah.
please ask your question.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening. Ma'am, am I audible? Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm not able to hear you. Like, I guess you have been muted by the host.
No, no, I
Uh,
I can hear you. Please go on.
yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, today morning I found a post on LinkedIn, so which had intrigued me to ask this question to you. So I'll go with this post. This post was regarding a comparison between a BPO employee and a lawyer. So in this post, one of the comments posted by Mr. Amish Agarwal, so it had stated that BPO employees, like, they can earn around 2 lakhs per month at end of their career, while lawyers make this within the decade. And also he had stated few things like which had intrigued me. So he said, like, but if you're coming to me and you don't know which side to stand in court, how to draft a legal notice, or how to even ask an adjournment, I'm sorry. So it better be off at an IPO. So, ma'am, for this, I'll just ask you a question. Ma'am, like, how should a first generation lawyer equip oneself while stepping into litigation? And when these days it's merely looked upon as a disdain rather than providing a patronage. That is my question.
So the thing is, like I've been trying to explain for the last 50 minutes through small segments, is that there is no handbook. Nobody can tell you day one, you have to stand here, this is how it's done, this is the format. I mean, there are absolutely numerous thousands of things that you need to know, and you'll have to be smart enough to pick them up. And of course, what Mr. Ramesh Agarwal said was correct, because sometimes the uh, freshers think, and may I ask, are you a law student?
Yes, ma'am, I'm a final year law student.
Great. So what happens is that all our lives in our educational system, we've been taught that, when we are in school, teachers are teaching us, they are breaking down the course, they're explaining everything. The same thing in college that happens. We as a system have become far too dependent on the spoon feeding that takes place. That हर चीज का जवाब कोई बता दे. I have a doubt, I should be able to Google it, I should be able to go up to my teacher, and it is upon them. And if I don't understand something today, it's because she didn't teach me well. He or she didn't teach me well. We as a generation have slowly started putting the blame on other people. But the simple thing you have to understand when you start working is that there's not going to be hand holding. Nobody is going to break down everything for you and hold your hand throughout the way. There are some things which you absolutely have to understand for yourself. And understand this when you start, that everything that you thought you know, you don't know anything. And you have to learn. So, even a simple thing like your clerk can teach you so much. So, don't be arrogant enough to not learn from them. Quote where you have to stand, whether you're a petitioner or a respondent, appellant or a respondent, that also varies. That also stand where you have to stand in Supreme Court depends on whether you're a petitioner or an appellant, and it's the left side or the right side. It's as simple as that, and sometimes lawyers forget. It happens because you're just not paying enough attention. But that does not mean you don't make the effort to learn. And these are smaller aspects you'll have to understand. I remember when I started, the first day I attended the court proceedings, the judge said notice is issued. So I looked to the senior who was standing next to me, associate in our office, and I asked, I said, what does that mean, that notice has been issued? Because that's a terminology of the court. Now nobody teaches you that in law school, that what does notice issue mean, or what does a word like dasti mean, which are things in everyday practice. Sometimes you don't understand the difference between what is dismissed or disposed of. So whether you're a first generation or a second generation lawyer, don't keep that in mind. It's not like second generation lawyers are given any tutoring at home. They are of course given, there's a lot more patience with them if they're practicing under, you know, their own contacts. That sort of comfort level is there for them. That cushion, it's very cushy for them. But the fact is that all of us are learning, so don't take it as a drawback that, you know, I am not going to know anything, so I should not even venture into it. You should not absolutely close your mind to making mistakes, because only when you make mistakes do you actually go on the process of learning also. So what Mr. Amish Agarwal said was absolutely correct. There is no end in litigation, and sometimes for the senior well-known lawyers, they may be making 2 lakh in an appearance, and an appearance may be as short as 10 seconds, and they've made 2 lakh. So, but they've worked hard for years and years to get there. So you have to take that as a positive example that one day you should also be able to get there with the amount of work that you do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. To I'll unmute Zaurav to ask questions.
Yeah, there were a few
Hello.
questions on the chat box, so I think if we can, the people who
Yeah,
wrote,
I'm entertaining
we
that
can
question,
take
ma'am.
them.
Yeah, Zaurav, please ask your question.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Ma'am, how can we make a choice between corporates and criminal law? Like, it's like people, they usually differ. They, being a girl, they say like criminal law is you can't take or something like that. So it's like, what do you think? How can we make a choice between corporates and criminal law?
No, I don't think you should make a choice in the field that you practice based on what people say you can or cannot do. It is about what you can do. Because at the end of the day, you will have to be the one going for your to your job workplace every day, or apply your mind, give your time, put in efforts. So you please choose something for yourself, whether it is in a corporate setup or in litigation and the subfield, whether it being corporate law or criminal litigation, like you said, uh, based on where your first of all interest lies, what you find interesting, what you personally you think you'll excel in, and then your aptitude for it. Because at the end of the day, your success will be determined if you're able to find the right combination between your interest and your aptitude. So don't let people decide that for you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Uh, so next, Sehwaj Khan, please ask your question.
Hello, am I
One
audible?
minute. Yes, yes, you are.
Hello, ma'am. I'm a first year law student from Campus Law Center. So I
Yes.
have a couple of questions. My first question is, have you had any regrets initially in your practice? Something which you realized that you could have done, you did not do in your law school? And my second question is, you have mentioned and suggested many times to work under advocate on record initially when you start with your internships. So it would be wonderful to work under you, but everyone can't work under you. You can't
I'm
give up.
not an advocate on record yet anyway.
Okay, okay, I'll check your LinkedIn. So I
No,
just thought,
advocate on record, you only become, you're eligible to sit for the entrance only after having completed 5 years. And that you
okay,
have to sit for an entrance which the Supreme Court conducts every year, so that you once you pass it, you become an advocate on record.
okay. So you
I
can't
still
give out.
suggest you go and work with advocate on record.
Yes, ma'am. So how would you suggest being a first year student to find good advocates or advocate on record? Just how to search on it?
I
It's
think you
like,
can just look up the recent judgments of the Supreme Court in the last 2 years, and you'll always see that wherever uh, in the list of appearance, right? So there is against a particular name, senior advocate is for designated senior advocates. Those people who are advocate on record, it says AOR, and for people who are neither senior advocates nor AOR, it just says ADV, advocate. So if you just analyze the judgments of the last 1 2 years, you will see who are the advocate on records who have been appearing a lot and have considerable amount of work and apply to them. Or if you don't want to do this, the shortcut method is go to the Supreme Court website. There is a list of advocates on record, and their contact information is there. So you Google them, you see if their internship opportunities are open, drop an email to them. But please
okay,
don't call people up for internships. I think a lot of students fail to realize this, that while of course you want to learn, but there is a certain decorum. Just messaging them, I want an internship, may not go well with a lot of people. So the best way is make your cover letter and mention the month that you want to intern. Don't make them ask you this question after having read your email, because then incomplete mail, some people will not even reply to them. So make your CV, make your cover letter, and uh, get their email addresses and start emailing them, because the AORs are one who can actually do all the filing in Supreme Court. So they are going to be, most of them undertake the drafting. They get uh, the drafts for vetting purposes, and they attend the hearings with, either if they are not themselves the counsel arguing counsels in that matter, then they attend the hearing also. So the learning with AORs is very comprehensive, because there are only limited amount of senior advocates that we have, and it's not possible for all of us to intern under senior advocates. But and not all internships can be under senior advocates. So it's a good mix that you can have, is go under an AOR.
yes, ma'am. And the first question, ma'am, which I have asked, could you please answer that?
I actually personally don't have any such regrets. I've so far been very satisfied with the amount of balance I had in my uh, college days as against this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ask your next question. Those who have questions, please ask. Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Uh, yes.
Ma'am, the question is that it's regarding whether a person's whether one's career is affected if he chooses to start with litigation department in a particular firm and later go independent.
See, if it's a firm which allows you actually to uh, argue matters representing the firm, then you will not be at any loss, because some firms, the smaller boutique firms, they actually do allow their associates to go and represent them in court as well. But the tier one firms, um, the notable ones, they usually don't give too many opportunities to their own counsels, for the fact that the stakes are a lot higher in their firms and their clients are big notable clients. So as a result, the people in the firm are just doing the paperwork, and their job is ultimately to brief a senior advocate who has that face value in a courtroom. So in that case, you lose out on getting the opportunity to argue and to think on your feet. So that will be the only drawback if you're working in a firm culture which does not, while your course of practice, allow you to appear in court. But if you're able to find a firm in which, while you're doing paperwork, you also are given the opportunity to appear in court, then I don't think there will be as such any difficulty. But you should also try and be involved in all the entire process of litigation, right from client conference to drafting to knowing filing as well, which is very, very important. Because once you go independent, you realize that making a draft is one challenge, getting it filed, the defects cured, the jurisdictions, getting it listed is another headache altogether. So you should actually be very well equipped with all these aspects.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Is there any other question?